All right, here we go. Welcome to the NBA report, man. CP the franchise here. I got my guy Alex Rataros on the other side, and we are previewing the NBA finals between the Denver Nuggets and the never say never Miami Heat. And joining us to cover the Heat, to talk about it from the Heat side of things, he covers the Heat for 5 Reasons Sports. Brady Hawk, ladies and gentlemen, man. Brady, welcome to the NBA report, man. How you feeling, man?
Feeling good right now. I appreciate you guys having me. Yeah, like we were saying before, I didn't think we would be having this discussion, but here we are.
Yeah, you gotta be
So,
feeling good, man, because to watch this Heat run, it's unbelievable. I haven't seen anything like it in the NBA. I mean, yes, growing up as a Knicks fan, we were the 8th seed and we beat the Heat, the 7th. That's the first seed to make it to the NBA Finals. But this was a little bit different because this Heat team, it really came up from the ashes, man. I mean, they lost the first play-in game. Then they're battling for their lives against the Chicago Bulls. Make it, go past the Bucks in 5 games, beat the Knicks in a tough 6-game series, and then they're up. They're about to make history on the Celtics by sweeping them, and then they're about to be on the other side of history. I mean, just talk about this run, about what you've seen with this team coming up to this point, man.
I mean, that whole description of what you just gave for the whole postseason is exactly how the regular season went. Like it has been adversity, ups, downs, everything. I was just looking at a Jimmy Butler quote where they started the season 2-5, and he was interviewed and he was talking about we're still winning the championship. I don't care what nobody says. And it's like, for one, it's just funny to hear him say that and then see the position they're in. And second of all, it's like to think this team started 2-5 and then they kind of make a run in certain pockets of the regular season. Certain guys step up. And then all of a sudden there was just worries or like, okay, well, they can make a run second half of the season because, well, they're going to make some trade acquisitions. They're going to go out into that range and they're going to do some things. They didn't. They go into the buyout market. They pick up 2 guys that actually weren't even playing at the end of this uh, Celtics series, but they've been big across this playoff run. And then all of a sudden, like you described, it's been incredible to see the way they land in this the playing range. They're literally, if you look at that screenshot in that Bulls game when they're down by a decent amount with 7 minutes left, but then they're down with 3 minutes left. Jimmy Butler takes over late in that game. They get him to this point, and then all of a sudden the takeoff from there. And it's been a lot of Jimmy Butler early in this run, the way he took over against the Bucks. Against the Knicks, it wasn't as much. It was more of him reacting to a lot of the things that the Knicks threw at him and him just kind of making those reads. And the role players started to step up. And then you saw everything come together in the Celtics series where when went up 3-0, everything was clicking. And then later in the series, things went downhill. And then game 7, they came together again. And now they're in the NBA Finals. So this season, as we said before this podcast even started, it just makes no sense. Like nothing makes sense. A team that was 27th in 3-point shooting in the NBA, now they're facing a Nuggets team that is 1-2 in 3-point shooting in the playoffs. Everything has been a complete turnaround from top to bottom with this team. So like trends, logic, all of that stuff was pretty much thrown out the window with
Out
this
the
team.
window. Completely out the window, man. You hit the nail on the head. Go ahead, Al.
yeah, I gotta ask Brady because yes, you're an analyst. You do great work for 5 Reasons Sports. I love the stuff that you write and how you break down film on Twitter. But you're also a fan of this Heat team, man. I gotta know. You saw this team go up 3-0, and then you see the Celtics win 3 straight. What were your emotions going through all of that?
So I'll be honest. So I was at game 6 against the Celtics, and I thought they won. Like I thought they won. I have a video literally on my phone where I was videoing the final play where Derek White tips it in. I actually just saw the miss and I didn't see the actual tip in real time. And everybody, I was like, why? Everybody was kind of like, nobody really knew in the arena at the time. Everybody was kind of confused. And I'm like, why is there no celebrating going on? And all of a sudden, it goes up on the Jumbotron when we look up and it shows him kind of tipping it in. That was just terror. Like it was just complete stun in that arena because there was like literally minute stretch. And I know they showed Jimmy in the huddle saying one more stop and there's all these stuff, but like there was a feeling that they were heading into the NBA finals on that floor in that game 6. And there was a little bit of comfort. Everybody kind of just went into their seats and felt a lot more comfortable in that game. And then that happens. And it was just absolute terror for the next 48 hours, it felt like, or at least the next 24 were just, everybody felt like they went from a team, like you said before, they were going to be on the right side of history to then on the wrong side of history heading into that game 7. But like, I even said it the day of that game 7, I said to myself, either if they lose this or if they win this, this totally summarizes this entire Heat season. Like
Yeah.
either they completely fold after playing at such a high level and they lose four straight, or they just after losing all hope and losing three straight, they come out and just win in Boston. And they ended up doing that. So either way, it kind of summarized it. But yeah, for me personally, it's been a wild run. That was a weird stretch of time when they were just it felt like specifically because there's always been the trust level in Jimmy. And when you saw Jimmy not looking like Jimmy for 3 games in a row, and now you're heading into a game 7, I think that is why people were scared. And then obviously
Yeah.
he wasn't even peak level playoff Jimmy. I wouldn't say in that game 7. It was Caleb Martin was playoff Caleb Martin, but they end up getting it done. So it's been a weird
Yeah.
ride.
When you talk about Martin, man, I mean, obviously the big storyline coming into this finals is the Heat and their rotation of 7 undrafteds, and even look at a Butler who was a second round pick, just really, really defying the odds in terms of roster building and what it takes to get to the NBA Finals. But Caleb Martin is another story, man. Having been cut by the Charlotte Hornets, a walk on, if you will, to this Miami Heat team, and there's moments in this game where, I mean, he's looking like the best player on both teams. I mean, talk about Caleb Martin's performance, not just, in game 7, but the entire series. I mean, he shot over 50% from the field, 40% from 3, shot creation off the charts. You look at him getting the ball wide open jumpers. I'm like, that's going in. Yep, big mistake. Oh, you left him open? Oh, that's going in. You're going to pay for that. I mean, what have you seen from him in this run so far?
So I'll say the one thing I've talked to him a ton about, he knows that teams are going to help off him. Like he always talks about that. Like he knows, and it's like he takes it as disrespect because he knows that's his job and he has to make teams pay. And we saw that to another degree in the Celtics series because it was pretty much a real disrespectful help off, and he started hitting shots. And then all of a sudden, early in that series, when they start flying closeouts, they're like, wait, this guy now has counters to my closeouts, and he has moves and a bag around the rim, and he has a good touch and finishing. It was like, wait, what do we do now? We look at the second half of the series. It was not Caleb Martin reacting to Boston's defense anymore. It was the opposite. It was the Celtics defense now reacting to Caleb Martin. They were like, he was pretty much in that game 7 said, Jimmy, get out the way, and I'm going to go ISO ball. I'm going to do Kobe fadeaways. None of it. It was really just a wild thing to see. But it's something he's worked for. Like you said, that it's literally cut from Charlotte. He's one J. Cole phone call away from not even being in this position.
Yeah.
It's just been an incredible story. And then to see him doing this at this level, it's the whole Celtics series, it's the entire playoffs, but it's just about the consistency level because he has not been in the same role for a series to series basis. From each series, he's played a different role, and he's moved around. And then now you see him kind of late in the series where they adjust him in the starting lineup. And I know everybody's down here in Miami's talked about they want him off the bench because he's been so good in that role. And it was like, okay, well, he figured out that role. And I'm like, no, Caleb Martin's just a really good basketball player. It's not that he's good off the bench. He's good anywhere. Like he's just a good player to plug around in different parts of the game. So he was major in that series. And not only the offensive stuff, it's like that's what's popping off the page. Like you said, I think he was shooting 60% in this series from the field and like 48% from 3. But he's also doing incredible things defensively. He's holding up on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And it's him and Jimmy switching back and forth in that series. And he's had the task of guarding even Jalen Brunson in the Knicks series. And he's had the Drew Holiday or Chris Middleton stuff in the first round. And he's done really good stuff on that end. But now you're seeing the flashy stuff. And it's literally was one vote away from being the Eastern Conference Finals
I thought he should have won
MVP.
He should have, man. He should have.
I would have personally leaned Caleb Martin. And I can see the case for both, but they're always going to lean on the best player no matter what it feels like in those situations. But he deserved it. He was incredible in all playoff run, but specifically in that series.
With Caleb Martin, man, like I'm starting to see plays called for him. Like you see him like getting like the curls just driving in, man. You talk about the isolation stuff. Is this something that you saw or Spo saw like in the previous season, or is this like should we be surprised by this, or is this something that is just he's needed those opportunities, and with Tyler Hero going down, this is just kind of opened up the door for him?
So I'll say to start the season, the whole motto around Miami was leaning offense. And one of the major reasons we're seeing that now is because the only difference with this team is you're taking PJ Tucker away and plugging in Caleb Martin. They have so much more offensive versatility with this team, and we're noticing that. And PJ Tucker was great. They wanted to bring him back if they could have, if he would have accepted the money that they were offering him. But it is what it is. Like, they're better offense without him when you don't have that guy that's just kind of not mobile enough. And Caleb's a guy now that's making them pays in ways that we did not see last year. I thought that was kind of the big difference between last year's Eastern Conference Finals and this one. But to your point, like there's even to before I get to the play calling stuff, there was the one bucket late in the third quarter in the game 7 where he has like he goes behind the basket baseline into the fadeaway right before the clock expires, where he has that baseline fade. But there's another angle of the play where he's literally on the inbound. Jimmy's like on one side, he's on the other, and he's yelling at the inbounder saying like, "Give me the ball."
Yes.
And it's like he goes out in the court and does that.
You're
and
talking
that's
about the play when he went at Tatum on that play.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct. The transition, then he goes behind the basket, little baseline fade, and it's like that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a guy that has a ton of confidence. Every role player on this team, for some reason, has incredible confidence, but he's a guy that's confident in his ability. And like you said, Spo is confident in him too. They found different sets to run him in. It's funny because you mentioned different stuff they've done. It started out with specifically early in this series where they kind of use Bam as a playmaker. They have Caleb set a pin down for Duncan, and then if they fly two at the ball, Caleb slips back door. They started at the end of the series. Duncan was setting pin downs for Caleb Martin, and Duncan was slipping back door, and that's why you saw the Duncan Robinson cuts and layups around the rim. And Caleb was sometimes drawing two to the ball. So like this literal storyline from not guarding a guy early in the series to doing that late. To your point, it's been seen throughout the season because he's had moments, and he's had moments against good teams. Like if you look at his best games, they're in big moments. His first breakout game last season was against the Bucks, where he had like a 28-point crazy game. And then obviously you see this year that he's doing stuff in kind of the biggest moments in the playoffs. So it's been a cool dynamic. And the other point you made about Tyler, that's a big one. They had to kind of change this offense around in the postseason, and part of that is putting the ball in his hands much more than they probably would if Tyler Hero was playing.
This is the NBA Report. CP the Franchise here. Alex Ratarz on the other side. We're talking to Brady Hawk as we preview the Miami Heat's upcoming NBA Finals matchup with the Denver Nuggets. And Brady, you spoke on something with this team that I've noticed in their run, and that's certainly their versatility. Because it's not just, yes, we've seen their shooting on display, and guys like Strus and Vincent and Robinson can certainly light it up, and Kevin Love to a certain extent, and even Kyle Lowry. But what I'm also noticing with this team is that it's not just their shooting ability, but like a Martin, their ability to put the ball on the floor. And so it just makes their offense so much more difficult to guard, because you got to have guys like a Vincent, like a Strus, like a Martin, even a Lowry, Bam. You know, these guys can put it on the floor. They can attack the basket. They're being very aggressive. And so now when you have Bam out there on the floor, you have 1 through 5 guys who can put the ball on the floor. They can get their own shot. They can pass the ball fairly well. So, I mean, this offense has become pretty dynamic.
For sure. And that's why I think specifically this finals matchup is so intriguing, because it's just two different motion offenses that do it in completely different ways. Like obviously with the way Jokic does things and just being just one of the best passers that we've seen from a big man. But the Heat do it in different ways. They just do it even kind of adjusting on the fly, finding advantages within a defense and just doing it on a game-to-game basis and running different things in that way. But to your point about the shooting thing, the one thing I think is the biggest thing of versatility is that Tyler Hero goes down. The first thing we say is, I don't know how in the world they go into the same pull-up shooting ability that they once had. Like they don't have that on their roster to kind of make up for the amount of shots that he's putting up and the efficiency that he's doing it on. And that was completely wrong, because their pull-up shooting has taken off in a way. Like I don't understand how it's happened. For one, it's been a lot to start this playoff run. As I mentioned before, it was a lot of Jimmy. Against that drop against the Bucks, his pull-up shot and pull-up mid-ranges were just dropping. And then you've seen at different points of the Knicks series and different stuff, they had Gabe Vincent doing it and kind of getting to his spots. And then Max and Duncan are not going to take many pull-up middies, but they're doing it pull-up shooting from high pick and roll stuff and pulling up into threes. So they're doing it in different ways, and that's why I think there's versatility, and that's why I just think Spo is just one of the best we have in this league, obviously, if not the best, because of just the way that he can adjust on the fly, and you just throw different things to him to utilize on the fact that they're doing this. It's not just that you're eliminating. I hate the idea. It's like, oh, you're taking away 20 points, a 20-point per game scorer away. Like it's that simple. It's like you have to adjust your entire game plan when that guy goes out. And Spo has just done it so perfectly, it feels like, against high-level talent. So that's the versatility word. That's what stands out to me.
You know, and you talk about the coaching, the versatility, right? I'm looking forward to this matchup just because these two teams are just so disciplined. Both are very versatile. Two head coaches that are just excellent, X's and O's guys. They really, you know, when I watch both these teams, both coaches just understand the pulse of that locker room down to the T, you know? And it's something where, you know, and just going off because CP and I, like, we cover the Knicks and we hear everyone talk about Johnny Bryant, the assistant coach. We don't really hear about Tibbs like that. But when you watch Spo, when you watch Malone, these guys just like, they know what to say, how to galvanize their troops and everything. And going into this matchup, I want to know, how is this Miami Heat offense going to go against the Denver Nugget defense?
So I'll start with the fact that I mentioned the pull-up shooting a second ago in the Bucks series. It's similar in that way that if you can get to your pull-ups that in a way that you couldn't against Boston, the only difference is comparing it to Milwaukee is they don't have the rim protector that Milwaukee has, and they don't have the screen navigator in Drew Holiday that Milwaukee has. So it's you on paper, you should have cleaner looks than you had in that original series, in that first round series. Now I think a big aspect of this series, if you want to talk about if they lost that game 7 in Boston, the reason was going to be because Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo pick and roll. I keep saying that over and over because it completely got flattened out. Like they were just switching out and Al Horford onto Jimmy. He couldn't kind of get to his spots. They were putting a smaller defender on Bam. You're forcing him to be a post-up threat. That's not where he wants to be. And you just saw it kind of crumble across those 3 losses in that Eastern Conference Finals. The reason I say that is because if they were to kind of have a successful offense in this finals run against Denver, it's because the Jimmy Butler Bam pick and roll. There is a lot of opportunities there that they did not have in the last series. One of the things is Jimmy, like I said, the pull-ups, the fact that this Denver team, what did they lack? They lack rim protection. Jimmy kind of getting able to go to the rim in that type of way. And there's obviously the Bam factor is if Jimmy's kind of cooking in that way and you're moving Jokic around in the pick and roll and now he's playing higher up to the level of the screen, the one thing I keep harping on is Bam is going to have a ton of 4-on-3s backside. The series feels like so much on Bam to me. And it's in a different way than we've said before. It's not like, okay, this guy has to go out there and drop 22 to 25. It's like, no, he has to just be really decisive and make good decisions, be able to score as well. Cause on those 4-on-3s, he might have to go, when the big man's flashing high, he's going to have an opportunity to score at the rim. But there's that type of stuff that I think they can get to. And then there's obviously the factor of the one adjustment that I think they lean into that we haven't seen yet, and that's something I put on Twitter the other day, was that Jimmy Butler is a roller. They've been trying to find ways to kind of move him around in a way where it's either Jimmy Butler pick and roll, if he's off ball, he's staying in the corner, or they'll kind of flip dunker spots with him. The one wrinkle that we haven't seen yet, which is something we've seen a lot in the regular season in the past, is him as a roller. And if you look at, I said before, when I say regular season film, the Denver Heat regular season film means absolutely nothing from this season. The reason, if you look at it, there's like Jimmy cooking DeAndre Jordan. There's Bones Highland cooking Miami, who's obviously not there. There was one of the games where Miami ran an 8-man rotation. 3 guys off the bench were Jamari Boye, Haywood Highsmith, and Orlando Robinson. That was their 3-man bench group. So we can't learn a lot from what we saw in the regular season. But Jimmy as a slip guy is going to be there, and it's about getting him easier opportunities and get him going to the basket, because this is not Boston anymore. This is not a team where he's going to be throwing 94 pump fakes around the rim. This is a team where he's going to be able to go straight up, especially if they're moving, like I said before, Jokic in that pick and roll and he's out of the play. We've seen before where they have Jamal Murray's of the world or Popes of the world that are kind of the weak side defender that they have to manipulate. So I just think there's different things they can go to in this series where I will use that word again, versatility. There's more versatility with this offense I see with this series compared to probably any of the 3 that we've seen so far.
And, going to the other side of the ball, right, defensively for the Heat, how are you going to stop the Nuggets offense? Because they've just been so potent this offseason. And I'm going to ask you that, and then I got a follow-up question on the versatility. So how is Miami going to stop the Nuggets' potent offense?
So that's the tougher one. Like I see a clean way of dealing on the offensive side. The defensive side, you have to just the where I've come down on it is that there's not going to have a defensive base. I don't think they have one single defensive base. I think they change it by possession. Like Spo's going to go completely mad scientist. This is the finals. I'm throwing everything on the floor, where they're going to possession. We're saying, okay, we'll drop and take Jokic away on the roll, but now Jamal Murray all of a sudden has to work his pull up. And then we'll go full out switching, and Jimmy's fronting Jokic down low, and they're sending help backside. But we're kind of shutting the water off on Jamal Murray up top. I know there's been talk about zone. I'll say that I don't think we see zone in this series, specifically with Jokic on the floor. But there's pockets of time. There's Aaron Gordon's their backup 5, essentially. And I think actually Miami leans with Haywood Highsmith as their backup 5 for portions of the series. When they do that, when Jokic is off the floor and they bring Haywood Highsmith in to be the backup 5, I think they go zone right there. But we will not be seeing zone against Nikola Jokic. I definitely don't think that. But matchup-wise, I mean, you have to pick your poison with this team. I think we know that. It's like, do you stay home on shooters and let Jokic kind of cook and go one-on-one? Or do you help down Jokic and then kind of pray that they don't shoot well, but they haven't shown any signs that they're slowing down? Like, this has
Right,
been a
right.
really good shooting team, and they have certain guys you can help off of in theory. Like, there's the Aaron Gordon got one, and there's Bruce Brown you'll probably help off of here and there, but nobody else. Like, you're not helping off of probably anybody else. So this is a tough team to deal with. So that's why I don't think there's one thing you could throw at them. You just have to throw a bunch at them and hope it works, and probably switch up matchups. Like, I think Caleb Martin stays in the starting lineup to start at least. So you'll see Bam on Jokic, but there's a world where maybe we see some Kevin Love and they throw Kevin Love at Jokic and then have Bam help off Aaron Gordon. So there's different, I guess, matchup stuff they can do. But I think we know when you look at the fact of what this Denver team did in the regular season and the playoffs, like, there's not been any hitches with this offense. They're tough to deal with.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
True.
And
Go
the last question I got is that, you know, you look at Miami's versatility, right? And I think you got Bam playing center. He's listed at like 6'9", 6'10". Are you worried about height and wingspan in this matchup against the Nuggets team? Because you got MPJ out there. Obviously, Jokic is just a traditional like 7-footer. Does that concern you at all?
Not really. But the one thing that does concern me is the offensive rebounding stuff. Like, if they're switching, we know what Jokic can do around the rim in that range, and I think that's worrisome, and that's why I don't think you can do it too much. I don't think you'll see a lot of Jimmy on Jokic, but they'll do it for times. Even the Bam on Jokic stuff, like, even if they're playing straight up, like, you cannot let them get extra opportunities offensively, because what is the most dangerous thing off an offensive rebound? It's a kick out for three. And what does this Denver team do better than anybody is efficiency from three. So I think that length part is the interesting part. And I know it makes it even worse when you're talking about the lack of length that I'm sitting here saying that I think Haywood Highsmith's going to be their backup five. But I think Kevin Love gets spot minutes just here and there. I just think they're going to, this does not feel, and the fact that Spo said today on media day, like, they'll find minutes for Cody Zeller and Kevin Love makes me think even more so in my idea that he's not playing, that they're not playing. Like, the fact that he said they are makes me think even more that they're not, because why would he say that? So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But the offensive rebounding part is probably the key to that topic.
True indeed, man. Once again, this is the NBA Report. CP the Franchise here. Alex Ratarsa, Stratocaster. Brady Hawk, who covers the Miami Heat for 5 Reason Sports, joins us to preview the Miami Heat versus Denver Nuggets NBA Finals matchup from the Miami Heat perspective. Brady, they are saying that Tyler Hero, who has been cleared for practice, Spoelstra was non-committal in terms of when he will be available. They don't want to rush him. The talks are that maybe it's game 3 in Miami. But whenever he does come back, how do you see that adjustment? You know, him sliding him into an offense that has been cooking so far, man.
Yeah, I think there's definitely worry from the fan base in terms of this offense clicking so much and then throwing him back in the mix. There's this idea that it's just going to not look great, it feels like, but I'm not on that side of things. I'm really not. I think in terms of this matchup, you're going to need him. I really believe that. I think like the stuff I was talking about with Bam and the 4-on-3s, what is originally creating that? It's the 2 on the ball for the shooters. It's the Max Strus and the Duncan Robinsons of the world. But that's only going to take you so far. The 2 on the ball stuff and working out of that's only going to take you so far. You need a guy that can extend plays out of those 2 on the ball things. And Gabe's been able to do that at times. You can see Duncan maybe do it here and there. But that's Tyler Hero's specialty. And we've talked about him dealing with blitzes, but he's just an on-ball creator that can do some stuff. The only part that I'm skeptical about is just how the hand's going to look. We just don't know. A guy that does not have his shooting hand or it hasn't shot back, like, he's doing it now. Now he's getting shots up, but it's like, that's a long period of time to just not have your shooting hand in NBA rhythm. Like, that, it's a tough thing to see. But like I said, they're going to find minutes for him. I just don't think he starts, obviously. I think he's a guy that's going to get spot minutes off the bench. They're going to utilize him. The hard part is you're not taking Max Strus out of the starting lineup, and you're not taking Duncan Robinson's minutes away with the way he's playing. Where do you fit him in? Right. That's been the main question. And their motto all playoff run has been, we're keeping one below average defender on the floor at all times. I mean, maybe here and there they've thrown a Strus Duncan lineup, but not much. We have not seen much of it. You're forced into that now when Tyler returns. You're going to have Tyler and Duncan or Tyler and Max. But I'm willing to make that trade-off. I personally think it makes sense just because it gets their offense in cleaner looks. And this isn't like a Boston team where you have 2 elite wings that can just absolutely hunt you in isolation. Like, yeah, Jamal Murray can get you on a switch, and there's certain things they can do. But it doesn't worry me as much as like those type of teams. I think they can get around 2 negative defenders. And it sounds wild because it's an incredible offense and it's like a wild thing to say, but it's like you rely more on off-ball stuff against this motion offense Nuggets team, where they can get away with it, and they're both serviceable off-ball defenders. So we'll see what happens, but I think it could be a decent boost. And hey, look, from the non-schematic side, Tyler Hero is a man of the people, and returning in a game 3 with the home crowd going crazy, like that guy's gonna love it.
Yeah.
Like he's hitting his first shot. That's all I'll say, because he's gonna be feeding into that crowd. So and from a personal level, he deserves to be on this run. Like the fact that he knows that nothing mattered that he's done in the entire regular season. Everybody knows you have to prove it in the playoffs. That's been his big thing. He hasn't had the opportunity. So if he can have his fingerprints on this run, I think that would be pretty cool for him.
No question about it, man. And how about the bench battle? You know, this Miami bench has been also a story this entire playoffs. Spoelstra's shown that he hasn't been scared to go on anybody. Even Haywood Highsmith had some big moments in spot minutes in this Boston Celtics series. Who do you think has a bench edge in the finals?
Well, it's funny because I don't even feel like the Nuggets really have a bench. They just have like 2 guys. Like, what are they going to go?
Yep.
I think to a 7-man rotation with Brown and Christian Brown, the other guy. So it's they're going to just slot different guys in and move pieces around. Whereas Miami, we're talking about essentially like 11 guys that could play. Obviously they're not doing that. I think they'll stay with an 8-man rotation, maybe extend to 9 for some minutes. But it's funny because I even think back to the Knicks series where Miami's depth has never been a strength of theirs. And I remember there was obviously a couple edges for the Knicks. There was like the offensive rebounding stuff. There was the physicality. And then the big one was bench scoring. It was the big one. And the injuries played into that a little bit as well. But it was the fact that Miami's bench just completely played out of their mind in that series and across this whole playoff run they have. And so that's why I think if we're talking about full-on kind of production, it probably leans in the Miami's direction because they have for one, I'll say Kyle Lowry is going to be critical in this series. A guy that has experience at this level, a guy that you need in these big moments. As good as Gabe Vincent has been, you need a guy to calm your offense that knows what to do and has been here before. And Duncan Robinson, obviously, in this range, he's been playing incredible from 3 and kind of finding counters down the lane. And then if you're adding Tyler Hero into this bench conversation, I think I would definitely give Miami the edge. I just wonder if now, let's say we're in a 2-2 series heading back to Denver and it's a game 5. I wonder if Miami's bench looks a little closer to Denver's than it does early series Miami. Like, do they cut it to a 7-8-ish? We'll see, because at that point, it's just throwing everything out there on this final stage.
I just feel like that Spo has just been so good at using everyone on the bench, even if it's for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Like, you get Cody Zeller out there for like 3 minutes. You'll get Kevin Love out there for 9 minutes. Like, I feel like the Heat bench in this one is going to be the most key factor for this series, because if he can get, and it's just happened every single series, whether it's Bucks, Knicks, now Celtics, like you watch Spo throw like anybody out there, it's like, oh, you're getting some positive minutes now from Highsmith, right? And it's like, okay, anybody will just get some good utilization in this series. So I'm looking at the Heat bench just being a factor in this one, if you're gonna ask me.
Yeah,
for sure.
True story, man. And who's your X factor in this series, Brady? Who's your X factor? I mean, so many guys have stepped up for this Heat team. It's Caleb Martin. I mean, Max Strus has had his day. Gabe Vincent for sure. What do you think's your X factor in helping take this chip back to the 305?
And why is it Cody Zeller?
You mentioned Cody Zeller in 2 minutes. He was a -7 in 2 minutes, which I didn't understand was possible. So I don't know if we'll see that again. But for the X Factor conversation, I've been asked this question, obviously, in every series. And it's funny because I always have, at least to start, would always say Caleb Martin. And then after like the first 1 or 2 series, kept saying to myself or saying on podcasts, I'm like, Caleb Martin has graduated from X Factor, because if he's an X Factor in every series, he's no longer an X Factor to me. I think he's past that point now. And the guy I've leaned on actually is Gabe Vincent. I think he's actually the X Factor in the series. Part of it is just the stuff I said about Tyler Hero, and we're not knowing what he's gonna look like, I guess, as a pull-up shooter in his role in this series. They just need Gabe to move Jokic around in the pick and roll. I know I keep harping on that part of this, but that's what you do against this Denver team. That is what you attack usually. There's obviously the factor Jimmy can attack smaller mismatches and go at Jamal Murray's or Popes in the low post. But the number one thing you're going to do is just see where he's at what point of the screen he's at. So Gabe's going to be instrumental in that. He's the guy that you're going to lean on originally. His usage has been through the roof. There's different things he's done as a catch and shoot guy, which is actually where he started as a basketball player. He was not originally a point guard. He was a spot up guy at the two, a combo guard. So he's comfortable there, but it's just the fact that now he's able to kind of run these pick and rolls and make decisions. And we'll see how they play Bam. I think that's the question. I think they're going to dare him to continue to take those pull-up jumpers. So I think a lot of the series is on pocket passing. So I could go down the list of all the guards and saying that they're an X factor. But Gabe and a lot of those guys just need to be able to make those type of plays. And if you look at the Boston series, as much as I was talking about the ways they were able to flatten them out, they were throwing things at them around the rim. There was not a lot of easy stuff around that range. Gabe was randomly just able to do stuff around the rim in that Boston series. Like he just found gaps. He was able to kind of finish in different points. And I'd never seen a reaction when he was out game 5. Like there's a part of this where you're saying like a guy earns money because he's played really well. He probably earned even more money in that game 5 when he didn't play because everybody realized just how important he was. And then obviously I look at his Denver series compared to the Boston one where I say they don't have the same level of rim protection. If Gabe can do that there, I feel like he can get to the rim even more and then he can kind of work out of that. So right now, and I think it's Gabe Vincent for me.
All right. And then Brady, what do you think the Heat have to do in order to take this series?
Keys to the game, keys to victory. See?
So aside from the schematic stuff, I think you're going to need consistent Jimmy Butler. Like you cannot have those pockets of the Eastern Conference Finals where you don't know what you're getting. We haven't seen that often, to be honest. Like that was new to everybody. We've not seen that version. And like I said, there's cleaner looks for him in the series, so you shouldn't expect it. But I'm going to go to the next guy in line, and I think Bam Adebayo is probably the X factor of the series, if I'm going to be honest. But he's just too good of a player for me to say he's an X factor. I feel like X factors have to be type of role players. But Bam's would be, in my opinion, if they were to win an NBA championship this year and take this series, it would be because of Bam Adebayo. Because I can't see them winning without him being big in general. And it's not, I think he gets a weird dynamic of kind of conversation about him as a player because it's all about his offense, and the stuff that he does defensively is not talked about enough because he is incredible on that end. He's literally a walking defensive coverage. That's why Spo was able to do the things he can do defensively because they can just mold him from a possession to possession basis. But they need him offensively in the series. Like the stuff I said before, the 4-on-3 stuff, the pull-up shooting, scoring around the rim in a way that he didn't do against Boston. They just need a lot of that stuff. They just really need to utilize him in that way, and it's not on Spo. I had this conversation heading into game 6 and 7 of the Boston series. They're like, well, what do you do to kind of make things easier for Bam? I don't think that's the case anymore. I think they're going to put him in positions early in the series to succeed, and it's on him to kind of take advantage from there. So that's kind of my biggest key, I would probably say, is just Bam doing his own job.
Yeah, I think, from watching Bam over the years, obviously defensively, he's a star, right? The versatility, his quickness. I mean, he has it all. He has it all. The range, the athleticism, the wingspan, he has everything. I think it's just offensively is where sometimes people are puzzled because at his high spots, you see a guy with, real star potential on the other side. I mean, you go back to the bubble where he's damn near averaging a double-double. I mean, he went off. And then, you even look at last year in their 7-game series against the Heat, there was just certain moments where he just wasn't there when they needed him to be there. And even certain moments in that Celtics series offensively, it's just... He just doesn't have it on consistently. And so I think that's where the frustration lies with Bam, especially on the offensive end.
For sure. I mean, that's dead on. I think we've had the aggression conversation in past time. That was the big thing for Miami fans was after every game, I felt like in the post-game press conference, I'd tweet out Bam saying I need to be more aggressive. And it became like a joke for a while. But now you're at a point where this regular season, they didn't have that problem. Like he said, Pat Riley came in and said they need him to get to 16 field goal attempts. Bam came in and said, well, I'm going to go get to 18. And he was a lot more aggressive throughout the season. That's why he was an all-star. He was really good pre-all-star break. And kind of it's tough to say got him to that point because getting them to an 8 seed, I don't know if it's an accomplishment for Miami standards. But he carried the load for them throughout the regular season, it felt like, for a lot of that time. And the question was, as like I said for Tyler, it was all about the playoffs. And you've seen him in this playoff run had big moments, like against the Knicks in that closeout game late in that series. He was big. The stuff he's done defensively. But to your point, yeah, use the word consistency. That's the big one. They need consistency from him in the series. And it's even tougher because then on the flip side, I say to myself, this guy has to deal with Nikola Jokic first in a 7-game series. And you're asking this guy to run your offense as well and do that stuff on the offensive end and score 25. It's like that's why I always have this conversation, because it's such a tough thing to do. It's like you're just asking this guy to do absolutely everything, but it's because he's shown he can do absolutely everything, so you want him to do it. So we'll see. They like I said, they just need him consistently.
True indeed, man. Al, go ahead and jump in. Final thoughts.
No, my final question is who do you think is going to win? Who do you think is going to win the series?
It's funny because I think it's going to be a long series. I do. I mean, that's an easy answer, but I actually do lean Miami. And I don't know if that's a bias thing. I haven't fully decided if I'm going to go Heat in 6 or 7, but it's one of the two. And I've just seen there's always like this take where it's like, okay, well, they're going to win in 6 because they're not winning on the road in a game 7. And I've just seen this team play really well on the road. Like they've won every game won. They've walked into every team's building to start a series and won.
That's a fact.
So it's like you're not worried about that from that sense. And especially when things get tough. If this goes late in a series in the NBA Finals where it's Jimmy Butler, and I'm just going to say Jimmy Butler and Erik Spoelstra with 1 or 2 games left and laying everything out, that's who I'm leaning with. I just am. I just know Jimmy Butler being on that type of stage is going to lay everything out there and give Erik Spoelstra the tools to say everything that I have had in my back pockets through this entire season and playoffs, I get to just lay out there right now. I just side with those guys at this time. So, I mean, a lot of things have to break right. You have to be able to still shoot at the same level that you've been. You have to still be able to kind of contain the Nuggets in a way where it's not still a generational offense. But yeah, I think it's going to be a long series, and I think Miami ends up actually pulling it out.
This series is going to be so confusing.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it, man. Anxiously awaiting. But Brady, man, keep up the great work. Keep killing it out there. We appreciate you for coming on, and we'll talk soon down the road, man. Good luck in the series, man.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for having me on, for real.
All right, sounds good.